It's the 9FM Morning Show with Steve Fisher and Joey Fordman.
You should call the radio station and let them have it.
Yeah, boys, pick up the phone.
We want to learn from you.
You want to talk with Steve and Joey? Call them now.
773-585-0999.
9FM, it's Steve and Joey. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Oh, thank you. So many choices, but thank you for joining us.
We appreciate it. And thanks to Nick Lachey, who joined us in the Celebrity Hot Tub. Joey, I believe he's on his cell phone right now.
Hey, what's up? This is Nick Lachey, and you're listening to Steve and Joey.
Can't forget about me. He just can't stand being away.
All right, our big phone topic today, to curfew or not to curfew. Once you get married, does your spouse have to have a curfew? This woman says no. In fact, she doesn't mind if he goes, hangs out with the boys in what they call a gentleman's club.
No, I just think it makes me very comfortable in my marriage and trusting of my husband, because the way I figure is them girls are just prepping him for me to have a good night when he comes home.
Oh!
Thanks for calling. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Wow. Why do they call him gentlemen's club when no gentlemen go there? That's the question.
That's a good question.
You know what I'm saying? Hey, new to know Chicago. He knows some summer deals for all the ladies. All these markdowns up to 75% off.
Yeah, he knows all kinds of great things.
Plus, I think he had some advice for me.
I think that Steve might want to take a trip to the city, get himself some new shoes.
What are you trying to say, Noonan?
I'm trying to say that your kicks are a little outdated, boy.
Just a little.
Did you just call me boy?
Well, I should call you daddy, shouldn't I?
Who's your daddy?
Stop at 9 a.m. Commercial free for a full hour. Right after Steve and Joey.
On 9FM.
99.9.
WRZA. Park Forest.
We play anything.
Thank you so much, Joey. It's great hanging out with you.
As always.
See you tomorrow, 5:30 to 9 on 9FM.
We play anything.
Look at that good-looking fella.
I'm having my Johnny's Italian Beef Ice from the very famous Arlington Heights location. Not Elmwood Park, the original. But still, the best.
$2-3 years ago.
Oh, my gosh.
Steve,
how you doing, Peter?
Steve, welcome to the show, my friend. Bongo Mike, put a log on the fire. We are going to drop some names. We're going to go back in time, and we're going to say, I remember when. Steve, how do we know each other? What was the first time we met? Go ahead, tell everybody the first time you met Pete Jansons and how pleasant it was.
Bongo Mike, how long have you known Sweet Willie and Peter Jansons?
5-10 minutes max.
Really? Okay. Okay.
No, it's been, I don't know, I would say 5 years, something like that.
Okay. All right, so it's eerie how similar our life are. Pete, you and I.
Yeah.
It's almost like Step Brothers. I'm not sure if I'm Will Ferrell or I'm not sure, but it could be twins because you're much taller than me. But like our lives have paralleled each other to a T, and it's eerily scary how much our lives have paralleled each other. So first of all,
yes.
Bongo Mike, right?
That is correct.
So yeah. Peter and I, we met at Lane Tech High School back in the day. We both played football together.
Okay.
And then we followed each other because our grades were not good enough to get into Big Ten schools. So we had to go to Southern Illinois University down in Carbondale.
The Southern Illinois.
Oh, man, you guys are Salukis?
So we're Salukis. So get this. So not only did we go to high school together and play football together, then we go to college together and play football together. And then it gets really weird. So then Pete, everybody knows that you were the general manager of Cubby Bear back in the 90s. You were the king of entertainment. I was doing radio back in the day at Q101. In fact, we did some radio promotions. Was it the Hang Up when you were in downtown in the Gold Coast for a while?
The way I remember it is Q101, you were the first afternoon DJ.
That is true.
In the early 90s, the Chicago music scene was hotter than shit. And we had the Wallflowers coming through. That's Bob Dylan's kids band. And that was a Q101 show. And I don't know, you were too big at the time, I think, to come in and do, the mic handoff. But that's how I remember things, I think.
The truth is, I did introduce Jakob Dylan, who spells his name with the K, by the way. And
Yeah.
so we introduced Jakob Dylan at Cubby Bear. And that's when you and I were like two worlds collided. It was no longer about football. It was no longer about our quality education down in Carbondale. It was literally, here you are, the big kahuna at the Cubby Bear. And I'm like, this is so surreal. Now it gets even stranger. So then, Bongo Mike, we both left the entertainment industry and do a shift. Yes, we do a complete shift. Pete married a wonderful woman who said, Pete, I think you should go get your MBA. Am I right? Is this the story?
Yeah, pretty
Pretty
much.
much. So he leaves the entertainment industry and leaves the bar scene. He becomes like the big kahuna at Career Builder. I leave radio. I go into real estate, and then he has me come speak to career builders to make investment
some
property
leads.
decisions. I'm telling you.
Put the coffee down.
Pete, it's even crazier. So what does Pete do? He leaves Chicago. He moves to Arlington Heights. What do? I leave Chicago. I move to Arlington Heights. So there's only one thing left to do, and that's I have to come follow you and move to the Lake Forest, and then my life will be complete.
Just don't mention my name.
So I got to go
That's it.
back before we get too far down the road. I got to ask the question. So I had some friends that went to Carbondale, and I would go down there and visit them during their what they would call Spring Fest. You guys did any partying out at the Spillway?
Never.
Ooh, maybe.
Never at Halloween. Never.
Did you ever go through Fat Man Squeeze at Giant City?
You know what? I think Pete and I probably had more stories at Doomer Rocks on North 51 than we do in the great outdoors. Because you were running security there, and they had me DJ at Doomer Rocks. It was disgusting. That place, honestly,
Roadhouse.
I think
that was
oh
Roadhouse.
my gosh,
You'd have to kick
awful.
the ankles for the guns.
Was there brawling every?
No, bang bang, stab. It was a stripper bar. You had the male strippers earlier in the night, and then you had the ladies at the end of the night. I would be the guy that go on the road with the boombox and say, "Don't touch the ladies." But Steve, man, you've always been a DJ back in Carbondale, WCIU. Talk about that and the communications program, because we throw shade against SIU, but the communications program that's pretty stellar there.
Yep. Actually, you know what? It is. And I think one of the reasons, and really the only reason why I went there instead of playing Division III football at North Park University, I really just did some research. And the radio and television program back in the day was either top 5 or top 7 for job placement for, career advancement. And when you think about all the people that have gone through the radio and television program that actually started off at the college radio station, WIDB, our most famous alum is Bob Odenkirk. So when I arrived in Carbondale, Bob was a legend. He'd already graduated. And this is obviously long before his success, Better Call Sal. But everybody would play like audio tapes of Bob Odenkirk. And they're like, this guy does not party. He doesn't drink. He doesn't do drugs. But he is the life of every party. And literally you go, this guy's hilarious. And he knew he was going to be successful in life. Another guy that I worked with at WIDB, the college radio station, who made his name in the 90s in Chicago radio was Crazy Howard McGee, who was on WGCI. So it's a great program. And there's many people that Pete and I know that made it in radio and television. They moved on to different markets, sometimes behind the scenes, whether they're, photographers or videographers for Fox News in Chicago or whatever the case may be. But it really was a great program. And because you had 2 college radio stations, WIDB, which half of it was alternative, which is where I really, that was my PhD in music, because it was really more adventurous and probably more open-minded than even XRT at the time. And so I learned from some guys that opened my mind, because I was a kid that grew up listening to Journey, listening to Led Zeppelin, listening to Van Halen. Yeah, throw in a little Rick James because I loved funk and I loved R&B and house music. But then all of a sudden these guys are like, hey, this is a band called Husker Du. Check out this band called The Smiths. This is Cabaret Voltaire, The Cure before they became big, Depeche Mode. I mean, U2, even when they were on the cusp in the 80s. So it's you're introduced to all these bands that they considered alternative or progressive. Red Hot Chili Peppers back in the day when George Clinton would produce them. So WIDB is really where I got my education on music. And then when Q101 came along, and it's a blessing in disguise, they would ask me, one of the tests that they gave me is they literally gave me a sheet of paper with about 100 bands that were on their playlist. And they go, pronounce the name of each band. And I was like, oh, that's easy. This is the stuff we grew up on at WIDB. And that's one of the reasons why I got the gig, is because they didn't want somebody who sounded like a DJ, meaning, big voice, hey, how you doing? But they just wanted somebody who was real, but was passionate about the music. And I was very fortunate to be at the right place at the right time. And plus, I hadn't hit puberty yet, so I sounded like I was 19, even though I was probably 25. And that's what they wanted. That's the sound they were looking for. They didn't want that polished DJ, that sounded like your typical top 40 DJ. So it was really cool, man. It was a great experience.
Talk about the scene back then, man. Because I mean, it was white hot. I mean, Cubby Bear, Polestar Venue of the Year, 92, I think it was. The bands that were going, Johnny Cash, Waylon Jennings, you name it. We went after the country and jazz niche that nobody was doing. And then finally we got Norm Weiner, who I'd love to hear your thoughts on it at XRT to get behind the shows. But when you got into Q101, drop some names, man, because you got pictures. Because when you go on stage and do that stuff, I mean, photo ops left and right. Drop some names. Go.
Well, first of all, obviously with you and me at Cubby Bear, I got to meet Jakob Dylan and Wildflowers. But we were meeting artists before they really became big. And so, for example, when Q101 used to do these kind of like their mini Lollapalooza, they would call them jamborees. We're meeting people like Gwen Stefani, No Doubt, before they became really huge. Yeah. We even broke, a couple of other artists locally that Stabbing Westward and other bands that were up and coming. Local H, obviously Smashing Pumpkins were huge. The bands that I got to introduce, Pete, I don't know if this is a blessing or a curse, but it's kind of a shame. The last time that Soundgarden performed at Aragon, I was able to introduce them. That was pretty cool. The last time that NXS performed in Chicago as a band, I got to introduce them. That was really cool. But getting to meet Red Hot Chili Peppers. For some reason, I don't know why. I've interviewed Lenny Kravitz 3 times in my career. I have no idea why it happened 3 times, but it just did. But you're meeting all these bands, and what's great is, as you know, Pete, the Chicago scene is well known for so many different styles of music. From house music to speed metal to like Ministry. And I don't know if you remember this, but I actually got to interview Al Jourgensen back in the day. And here I am interviewing this guy that was just intimidating to me. And I'm like, I don't know if I can cut it. So I had to, and we did a road trip up to Champaign. So it was actually before one of their shows in Champaign. And I didn't have any black leather. I wasn't wearing any Doc Martens. I had this puffy shirt that made me look like that guy with the puffy shirt in the episode of Seinfeld, interviewing Al Jorgensen.
The pirate shirt.
Right. I got no tattoos. I had no street cred, but I'm like, I'm going to be tough. I'm going to be really tough for Al Jorgensen. But these are the type of experiences where you look back on the music scene. And I think that's the greatest thing about Chicago is the diversity. And honestly, Pete, I think you and I have had a charmed life where it all started at Lane Tech. I mean, talk about diversity. Where else can you be on a football team where your quarterback is Puerto Rican, your running back is Korean, you got an Irish Catholic lineman, a Jewish tight end, and then a Filipino defensive back. And then you have an awesome head coach, Sam Brunswick, who didn't know how to pronounce the Korean kid's name. So instead of calling him Ilsong Pang to these Chicago Sun-Times, he goes, his name is Bill Pang. It's like, what are you doing? These are the types of experiences we had. Such a great experience at Lane Tech. So diverse. But I think that's just how it was, a melting pot. And that's how the Chicago scene is. And especially when you look at what was going on at Cubby Bear, looking at Metro, Double Door back in the day. These are the places. And then we would do like Q101 nights at Kaboom. And we would do Q101 nights too at Crowbar. And so you're seeing all of these legendary DJs like Terry Bristol, of course, Psycho B, and all these other legends, and just meeting them and just going, they're the coolest people in the world. And guess what? Music and sports bring people together. They just do. As divided as our right? And booze. A little bit. But I mean, like, think about it. Like, we have such a divided country, but right now it's like, man, if you put the same crowd watching a Bears game and the euphoria of the Bears beating the Packers twice, that brings the city together. Or a concert where everybody's just enjoying the music, If everybody could just listen to a little bit more Bob Marley, the world would be a better place, in my opinion.
Like a Wild Hair?
Why not? Right. I mean, I would go to, back in the day when we lived in Lincoln Park with a buddy of ours from high school, we would go to Kingston Mines because I love blues, and you go to Kingston Mines, it's like, we have so much history, so much rich history of Chicago music.
Hold on. Go that place on Sheffield for the underagers.
Oh, yeah.
What am I talking about, Steve?
Yeah, Medusa's, and I think that's where I think Pete, when you and I would go to Medusa's because it was a juice bar,
Yeah.
you could be 18 and hang out till 4 in the morning. And it was an eclectic mix of you had obviously back then they called them skinheads, but not like the Nazi type of
Yeah.
skinheads, but just like shaved heads. They were into punk music, wearing the leather
Doc
jackets,
Martens, Green.
Doc Martens. Oh my gosh. The alley, by the way, is looking for a new owner, Pete. I don't know if you
They
saw that
are.
article. They're looking for a new owner. So the
Ted
alley,
Bannock.
I don't know. I think after 50 years, he's like, I think I might need to quit. I might need to retire. But Medusa's was another place where again it was we I called it like an industrial playground
Mhm.
where you had jocks. It's almost like the Breakfast Club. You had the jocks, you had the goth, you had this, you had that, but they all got along. And again, I think music just brings people together. That's where I met a college girlfriend, and we're dancing to The Cure, and we're dancing to other stuff, and it was just so cool. It was a great scene, and what's interesting is when Dave Medusa passed away a few years ago.
Mm.
He really, I think, came to peace with what he was. He was kind of like the Barnum and Bailey circus, Jim Rose ringmaster of putting together amazing culture environment that all these kids who kind of felt like they might have been outcasts could come together and just have a great time. And I think that's the beautiful thing about Dave Medusa is that he was a really kind man, a great individual who had the vision of I'm going to make money, but I'm going to give these kids a place to play where they feel safe, that they're not being judged by the color of their skin or what they're wearing or how many piercings they have or how many tattoos they have. And again, Pete, you and I are pretty much the most straight-laced guys that can get along with anybody. I don't have any tattoos still. I don't think you have any tattoos. So it's like
I got rid of them.
you got rid of them. Okay.
I lost a
Laser.
few bets in the day.
But I think that's the beautiful thing about Medusa's is it really was, man, just what Chicago should be. And that's just like a big gumbo of music and people and culture and personalities.
Now, Bongo Mike, feel free anytime to break this love fest that we're having here. But
Well, I got a question for Steve. I have some friends that got into radio and stuff, and I don't know if you worked with him, but one of my alumni from Niles West was James Van Osdell.
Love JVL. Love JVL. I mean,
so he graduated my class. Yeah,
I love that. Yeah, I think when JVL started at Q101, and I was doing afternoons, I think he actually started off as an intern.
Yeah,
and the great thing about JVO is like you knew he had the ability to interview people, and he was fearless. And I think what JVO has done beyond radio with his car con carne, and doing the interviews in the in his car, which of course a former late show host on CBS stole that bit, but JVO was the originator, and he can interview anybody. Again, just a great mind. Obviously, I think honestly, probably the best interviewer that I've heard in Chicago radio, because he wasn't afraid to ask those tough questions, and it could be a little snarky, but you want that. And the great thing about it, his musical knowledge was just amazing, and he could ride that thin line between alternative music, heavy metal, classic rock, and he knew all genres. That's what made him, I think, probably the greatest asset to radio. And we miss him on the radio, but I know he's kicked serious butt doing the podcast and the video cast, which I think again he was ahead of his time.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. It's funny you say that about his interviews in the car, because I didn't realize that James Corden, right? He was the guy that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I didn't realize that he was the guy that pillaged it from James Van Osdell.
I think if you look at the timeline of when JVO started doing it, he probably saw his stuff on YouTube and goes, "Hey, this is a great idea.
Yeah,
why don't I go for a ride with some celebrities?" But you know what? Even Jerry Seinfeld's doing it now, where he'll go in a car ride and interview other comedians, which again, is a trend. So maybe Pete, you and I just need to get into a Mini Cooper.
Oh yeah, give me two of them. One my left rolling skate, the other's my right rolling skate. So while you were at Medusa's, I was working at Cubby Bear, and at the time, Sue Miller was booking things there. Sue Miller went on to own Lounge Acts. I'd be scrubbing toilets, whatever, working the door, you name it, for $5 an hour. Lifta. Husker Du would come through and hang out. Jeff Tweedy would come out and hang out, and eventually he went on to marry Sue Miller of Lounge Acts. Sue, I know you're not watching, but come on over here and tell me how a nice young man I was back in the day. When she went to Lounge Acts, George Loukas, the owner of the Cubby Bear, put money into Cubby Bear. WGN came in, you had the Tribune and all the money coming in and fixing up. That's when things started taking off. Because remember, the Metro was what, a Swedish.
If you don't know Joe, you should just ask Joe Shanahan. I think he was booking acts at Smart Bar before he actually acquired Metro, is the story. And then, but I still think Metro is obviously, that's the pinnacle of every band's success. I think that's why you have so many bands like the Rolling Stones who just want to, when they come back on a secret, tour, they'll play the Metro.
Is Shanahan still around?
Yes, he's beat cancer.
He
beat cancer. I saw him at the Cubs opening day game, not this year, but last year, 2025. Amazing individual. Think about all the bands he's broke. I mean, always good to us people in radio. And again, I mean, just truly like a Chicago legend,
We got to get him on here, Bongo Mike, because thank goodness he's still around. He beat it. That is awesome. It was such a competition. Jam Productions, Arnie Granite, Jerry Michelson, they were the Live Nation of Chicago. I don't know if I'm saying this right, Steve. You know better than I do, but they would route acts through, and they would always go to Metro. And unless you overpaid, which we did, that was the strategy. And bless George Loukas for pointing up the money. But if you would overpay, you could get the bands in there. And for a stretch of time, we did that, and it worked out. Nowadays, if you do that, you get, I don't know, I think you had to do 5 bands to get 5 stinkers to get one good one. Right? And if you didn't do that, well, screw you. You're not going to, because remember, punk back in the day, Jam put the skinheads at the Cubby Bear because there wasn't lights at Wrigley Field and George had to make money at night. If you look on YouTube, I'm going to put his George Loukas clip in here from 1980s. Remember,
days, the Cubby Bear Lounge is probably the busiest bar in the city, an hour and a half before and after the game. The Cubby Bear is Chicago's #1 baseball bar. It's been here for as long as Wrigley Field has been, I believe.
I always come to the Cubby Bear. This is a good watering hole.
Tradition.
Yeah.
I come every year to the Cub opener. Last year it rained. We stayed here all day.
I'll tell you one thing. You don't have to look very far in this bar before you find somebody who knows a lot, and I do mean a lot, about the Cubs. Tell me about Dallas Green.
I think he's a great general manager. He's going to bring the Cubs up to #1 someday.
Tell me about the Cubs this year.
I don't know. I think they have a good chance if the pitching can hold up and stuff.
How come you're not at work?
Well, I woke up this morning and I wasn't feeling very well, and then all of a sudden the Cubs fever got me here, so I decided to come out here.
So you do have a fever. It's just Cubs fever.
Yeah, Cub fever. That's all it is. I'll get over tomorrow.
You don't even need to talk to the patrons to discover that the Cubby Bear is definitely Cubs territory. All you have to do is look around.
Now, from what you've seen so far, you might be tempted to think that the Cubby Bear caters exclusively to the Chicago sports fan. But every once in a while, this place pulls a real chameleon act and changes its colors from Cubs blue to punked out purple.
Although no liquor liquor is served, and this may look like a barroom brawl, it isn't. These kids are just slam dancing. Cubby Bear owner George Loukas explains the bar's transformation.
A few years ago, I wanted to be able to compete with some of the local bars that had entertainment. We had no business here, and the only people that would come in here to play for the door were the least desirable band. I know Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig on the wall would sort of frown a little bit if they saw some of our punk bands that came in here, but I'm sure the Babe would understand.
And how do the punkers feel about the Cubby Bear?
It's great. The managers are so cool. They let us play. You know, most places won't.
Most places won't even let us in, especially underage people. It's really hard to get a place to play.
I think it's really a great place. It's something always happening, you know, whether it's, you know, after a Cubs game or whether it's like tonight, you know, it's always a great place to go.
But whether you're a punker or a jock, just about everybody who goes to the Cubby Bear is a Cubs fan.
I'm a Cubs fan all the way.
I go to the games as often as I can, you know, I like the Cubs.
I love the Cubs. I've been a Cub fan since I was a little tyke.
The Cubs? My sister likes them, and I went to one game when I was like in 5th grade.
But you could see that you would have the baseball going on during the day, and then at night you had to, you know, post game clear everybody out, and here comes the skinheads. I remember the Exploited. Me and my buddy Big Mike, you know who you are out there. We would have to go on the stage, and we would have to manage the stage divers, right? Because they would go up there, and at the time, people were spitting on the stage, and we're like, "What the hell is going on?" And that was supposed to be a compliment.
Yeah, in punk music, it is.
It is. Yes.
So evolving from that and all the stuff that's going on, Steve, because we're talking about the music scene, and depending on who you're talking to, a Debbie Downer or Polly Positive, it's a great scene, it's a dying scene. I think it's a different scene. And I think DJs like you are I'm sure, I don't know if you're still spinning, Steve, but you could come out here and do some of this EDM music now. Is that what's hot now?
You know, it's interesting. Yeah. I mean, everything, if you go to Lollapalooza now in Grand Park, I mean, it's still a plethora of stages, and it's an amazing event. But it's not like the Lollapalooza back in the 90s. Like, when you think about it, after I left Carbondale, I was very fortunate to take a gig with a radio station in San Antonio, Texas called Kiss FM, which is not like the Kiss FM in Chicago. It was more like the Loop. So we took a busload of winners to Houston. The point I'm trying to make is, here one night I get to see Faith No More, Guns N' Roses, and Metallica. The next day, with the same group of bus winners, we're seeing Lollapalooza. I think it was Lollapalooza 2. So the headliner was Red Hot Chili Peppers, Ice Cube played, Ministry, and then these up and coming bands named Pearl Jam and Soundgarden. So to me, because Lollapalooza back in the 90s would just travel from town to town like a traveling circus. Now it's just this big 3-day mega convention at Grant Park that I think it's kind of lost the rawness of what made it special, that everybody could attend nationwide. And, you know, then they would do the Jim Rose side circus, you know, later in the later 90s. And I still think that, you know, Perry Farrell and what he did, you know, by being really the creator of this event, it's still one of the most amazing musical events. And I think, again, it belongs in Chicago, because Chicago is a melting pot, you know. And if you talk to people, even people from New York and LA, you know, I think Michael Douglas has the greatest compliment of Chicago. He goes, you know, New York talks about it, LA dreams about it, Chicago just does it. And I think because of our work ethic and because of our, honestly, we're the capital of the Midwest. We're a big, warm, friendly city. Yeah, our politics suck. Yeah, we get it. We're overtaxed. Yeah, we're paying the highest property taxes in the world. I get it. But still, Chicago's a destination. It's still a world-class city, world-class architecture. And let's be honest, Pete, how many great burger places are there now in Chicago that never existed 20 years ago? Like, there's probably 25 that are on my hit list. I'm going, I don't think I'm ever going to lose weight, because there's so many different variations of just a cheeseburger. It used to be like, who's got the best Italian beef? Who's got the best deep dish pizza? Now it's like a cheeseburger competition in Chicago. So we're such a foodie town that I think the music scene is something where, you can get music anywhere now. It used to be that radio was your only source or CDs, but now you got satellite. Now you can stream it. Now you can go besides Spotify. You can make it, and you can, besides Spotify. I mean, I think my iTunes library is catching up to my CD library because my wife is like, why do you hold on to these CDs that you can't play them? I don't have a CD player anymore, but I literally have probably 5,000 CDs just from collecting music, from going back to the 1980s from all the radio stations. A lot of times, you look back and you're like, I want to hold on to this because this is my youth. These are the memories that I remember, all the great concerts. And so to your point, Pete, music has changed absolutely, but people still want to see live music. People are still willing to pay. What was it like just the other day? Bruno Mars is charging $500 a ticket. Nuts. I mean, we used to think like 200 or 250 was expensive, but now that's like nosebleed seats.
That's the norm. That's
right.
like it's $150 now to go to a show.
Right. And so you look at it and you go, I do miss those days where we would just go to Cubby Bear or go to Metro or go to Double Door. And then even like some of the local bands that never really made it big, but they're still really good, like the Love Hammers, Escape from Earth, a couple of other Chicago bands that just, they had a niche where people would follow them and they had a big following. Again, I'm a big fan of Local H. The first concert I ever took my wife to was Local H at the Metro. So I think there's so much history that hopefully these bands will still keep performing, because it's amazing how many bands are still doing tours, and these musicians are like in their 70s and 80s.
Yeah. Let's get into the AI part of things, because are you a musician if you are DJ scratching and doing that? I just want to know your opinion.
Well, if you talk to Bad Boy Bill, who's probably, back in the day when he was on B96, I mean, he was the master at doing, we'll call it vinyl manipulation, where he could just create sounds. I mean, I remember in college when people were going, yeah, you got to hear this guy. He's 17 years old. Like, he started on the radio at 17. And like, who's this Polish kid from the western suburbs who's playing this amazing house music and club music and able to do what he does? But he had such a great reputation. He's still spinning. I saw Julian Jumping Perez the other day, who's like promoting some nightclub event that he's doing. I'm like going, these guys are in their 60s. Like, they're not young chickens anymore, right? These guys they're getting old, but guess what? All you have to do, Pete, I figured out the key. Put on a baseball cap, put on some sunglasses, and people think you're 35. That's it. So if you want to DJ like Electric Forest next summer, Pete, that's it.
You can do it.
You can do it,
There
Pete.
you go.
A buddy of mine, a true story. There's a buddy of mine from SIU, and I don't know if you ever met him, named Brian Hicks. Yeah. He's a plumber. He's a plumber by day, but he loves to DJ. And so he learned the master of DJing with computers. So he'll do all of these great events. His DJ name is DJ Terry Cloth. So he basically wears a terry cloth robe. And this guy's in his 50s, and he's spinning for these kids in their 20s, like outside Wrigley Field. I'm going, who are you, man? You're Peter Pan. You will not grow up. And I think if you're a club DJ, you have to have the mentality like, I really enjoy doing what I do. And I don't think it matters wherever you go. Like Pete, Home Bar in Arlington Heights, where you've performed with your friends and your musicians. I was there the other night for a high school lacrosse event, and they're doing karaoke night. And the guy that's running the karaoke finds I went to Lane Tech, and I go, yeah. And he goes, I went to Gordon Tech. I'm like, that's great. What year did you graduate? Right. He goes, what year did you graduate? He's like, 78. I'm like, you're 68 years old, doing a karaoke night in a bar, but he's loving it. Like, I just think, again, there's certain people that the 9-to-5 blue, white collar job is just not for them. They're going to go out and have fun, and God bless them, man. Life's too short.
Well, what'd you call that? Vinyl manipulation?
Sure. Scratching.
Okay. Scratching. Okay. You had that. You brought up Al Jourgensen. Okay. He I don't know how many synthesizers he had. Okay. That was artificial. Why such the outrage now with AI and making music? Is it really music? Is it not? I mean, if you know four chords and you have a good record label, you can make money in distribution that way. What has changed? Is AI music? What's your thoughts on it? And number two, the distribution has changed from Napster to where we are today. What have you seen over that time period? Two questions. Go.
First of all, I think auto-tune, where a musician can auto-tune their voice. I hate that. There's evidence, and again, he may be a great performer, but when you break down the lyrics of Bad Bunny and then you listen to him without the auto-tune, he's really not a musician. He's a showman, puts on a great show, but the lyrical content is not there. And again, if people are going to hate on me because I don't like Bad Bunny, I just think that there's artists like that. It's all smoke and mirrors. And I think when I interviewed Al Jourgensen and I said to him, you had this great album that actually had a couple of hits from With Sympathy. And then that was like a synth pop record that sounded like Depeche Mode, in my opinion. And then you went completely industrial. Why did you do that? He goes, oh, because the record labels wanted me to be one way. I wanted to be a different way. He goes, Steve, I don't need five musicians. I've got two computers on stage. And he was the first musician to embrace technology to make music, and he was unapologetic about it. He's like, this is who I am. I'm making the music I want. It's got an edge to it. So whether it was a Ministry, Revolting Cocks, or other offshoots,
DJs,
whatever he would do to produce, he really wanted to have that cutting edge that was different and unique. And the reality is that he was truly the pioneer of industrial music. I mean, if there's really a godfather of industrial music, it's Al Jourgensen.
Yeah, I agree.
People have to understand you can be a musician. I'm going to insult a hell of a lot of people here, and I look forward to your comments, but prog rock. Take four people, put them on stage, and they all solo at the same time. Okay. Okay, they're musicians, but the people in the crowd are like this. Okay. You can be a musician, but you have to be an entertainer too, because you got to sell tickets, right?
Yeah, but I mean, the people that follow the Grateful Dead or the other bands that became like the Grateful Dead, that's a vibe. That's what they're looking for. They're looking for the out of body experience, And so I get what you're saying. I get it. Four solos at the same time. I get it. Again, I think music today, when you talk about some of the AI artists that people don't realize it's an AI artist, and then they have a number one hit single. It's kind of like the kids today that are creating AI people that are influencers, and they're not even real. And so it's really scary. Like I did a marketing flyer to help out my son with a summer job, and we put his real picture through the marketing flyer system, ChatGPT. And the next thing you know, it manipulates his face to make it look like it's AI. And we're like, no, we want his real face. How do we get it back to the original form? But I think because there's so many filters on so many different, AI enhancements, that what is real anymore? And it's almost like when you go on Twitter or X, they have to define what is AI. Even in real estate too, Pete, they changed the real estate laws that if real estate agents are putting up fake grass or photoshopping fake grass on the outside, we can't do that anymore. But you can Photoshop furniture to call it a virtual tour or virtual staging, I should say. That's one thing. But like if you're putting up a scene of a mountain, landscape in Lamont, and we know there's no mountains in Lamont, that's where AI can get dangerous, And for, Pete, you're happily married. I'm happily married. But for those single guys out there, we don't know how many filters there are out there in those dating apps, right? You've seen those. You've seen those. You've seen those. Those funny things on social media where it's just like, here's her filter, here she is without it, or vice versa. Here's his filter. So it's a virtual world that we live in, Pete. Yeah. And it's getting scarier and scarier. And I think the main thing is that somehow, some way, we got to break through all this clutter and just reconnect as humans.
A lot of noise. You brought up real estate, and you're an earner, dude. I sold out, went the corporate route. Why'd you stop doing the music thing, and why'd you get into real estate? What happened there?
Thanks for asking. When we went to Lane Tech, we went to Lane Tech. Pete, as you know, there was that wonderful class called architectural drafting. And so I really thought I was going to be an architect or going to broadcasting. And what I realized after taking 2 years of drafting at Lane Tech, this is the old school of drafting before computers, with a T-square, pencil, paper, you name it, protractor. I think we had protractors.
Yeah.
I realized I would be bored the rest of my life if I was an architect, but I still had a passion for real estate. And so when I bought my first real estate investment in Lincoln Park, it was a 2-unit building back in '96. Paid 268 for it. Flipped it 3 years later for 425. I thought it was a genius.
American.
One of our friends from Lane Tech. So the woman that bought it from us, a great story. She bought it from us for 425. She gutted the whole place. Then she renovated the basement, turned it into an Airbnb. About 5 years ago, she sold it for like 900,000. So I look back and I go, that was my first mistake. This is before I got my real estate license. I should have bought 10 more of those multi-unit buildings. Same thing with my old man. My dad and I bought a studio condo that needed to be gutted in Wrigleyville. And we bought it for like 14,000. And then like 10 years later, we sold it for 100,000. So again, the same thing. You look back at those mistakes, and I think these are all of these investments that I made before I got my real estate license. So I got my real estate license in 2001, and I was still doing radio full time. And I think the reason why I realized it's time to grow up and kind of shift careers is because I saw that radio was changing, and it was no longer the local personality that mattered. The days of having Lynn Bramer and Terry Hemrett, those days are gone. And the only people that have personalities or allowed to have personalities on the radio, you either have to be part of a wacky morning show, or you have to be a sports talk show host, or a news commentator, or a political commentator. But the days of actually just being on the radio, having fun, and being interactive with your listeners, it's few and far between. Everything has become automated. Everything has become voice tracking. And I saw where radio was going, and I realized if I really wanted a family, if I really wanted to, take care of my wife and my kids, I had to do something besides radio. And don't get me wrong, I love radio. I miss it. But at the same time, what real estate gives you is the freedom to be your own entrepreneur. It's like, if you have bills to pay, go sell a house. You got to put a kid through college, go sell a lot of houses. But it's hard work. It's not easy, but we've been very blessed. And I think the great thing is when you align yourself with a great company, like I did with That Properties, being one of the founding agents going back to 2002, when I joined the company at the end of that year. I saw the vision of that company, and at the time we had 40 agents. I was one of the founding agents, and now we've just grown. And even though we're bigger now, and even though we've been acquired by Compass, the real estate corporation, we're still acting as an independent brokerage, and we still keep the same culture, the same vibe, the same marketing, and really the same technology. And I think that's what makes our company so fluid, is that you can work anywhere in any office. And the culture there is kind of like Lane Tech, Pete, where everybody is welcome. Just be yourself, do your thing. There's no judgment. And so I think that's one of the reasons why you can have many successful agents from App Properties that work in Lake Forest, as well as Northwest Indiana, as well as Hyde Park, Hinsdale, Lincoln Park, you name it. And of course, beautiful Arlington Heights, the future home of the Chicago Bears.
Maybe. We're not sure on that.
We
right?
hope. We are. It's happening. It's happening.
What's going on with that? How did they not get this deal done last night?
Politics.
Yeah, I know people that know Pritzker, and I know people that know the mayor of Arlington Heights. And I think, it's one of those things where everybody wants to say, we don't want to tax our citizens. And really, if you look at it, what people don't see behind the truly the fine print here is, if Indiana did not come to the table, the Bears would still be waiting. And I think Indiana's proposal is so enticing. I hope and pray that they've done a soil test, Pete, because I'm not really sure if Hammond and Wolf Lake is going to be safe enough where humans can actually hang out for 3 hours.
They have to cut
tailgate?
that.
I mean, there's talk about remediation. I mean, they're talking about this is BP's biggest oil refinery. How many oil tanks are underneath those grounds and reserves and deposits that we don't know about?
Allegedly.
Allegedly. You're right, Pete. The Chicago way. Allegedly. You're absolutely right. But I think the thing that's really a shame about Arlington Heights is that most people don't realize George Hallis wanted to buy Arlington Park back in the 1970s.
Mm-hmm.
And he was trying to cut a deal. And back then, the old mayor Daley's like, you leave Chicago, you're not the Chicago Bears anymore as long as I'm mayor. You know, you can call yourself the Arlington Heights Bears. And I think if you think about it, the Chicago Bears are the only professional franchise that I'm aware of, Pete, that have never owned their own stadium.
Yep.
They leased Wrigley Field for 50 years. They leased Soldier Field for 50 years now. And it's like, how much revenue did they miss out on just with concessions? Like, that's where Wirtz was smart, right? At least Bill Wirtz knew I'm going to make money off concessions. Yeah. And it's really smart to buy all that land around, you know, the old stadium and the United Center that now they're going to develop into this mega entertainment complex where they're going to have EDM DJs like Pete Jansons wearing hats and sunglasses. And it's going to be a big festival again. I mean, like, that's genius. And so the problem that the McCaskies have is I believe that they're the only sports family that doesn't have another thriving business to support their venture as a sports family. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Like, I think with Robert Kraft, correct me if I'm wrong, he had another professional career, did very well. Same thing with Mark Cuban. You know, same thing with all these other mega owners. And you look at that and you're going, okay, cash poor. They can put $2 billion, but that's it. They can't build the infrastructure. They can't make the $3 billion investment. And quite frankly, what Cook County is trying to expect from them that, oh, we're going to tax you. If you look at their tax evaluation, that there were estimates that the tax would be $50 million to $200 million a year. Are you kidding me? SoFi Stadium, which serves 2 NFL teams, their property taxes are less than $10 million a year. How does that happen where Cook County thinks that's fair? And that's the problem. And Maria Pappas, God bless her, but she's honest. She's like transparent. She's not holding any secrets. She's like, yeah, we have so many commercial vacancies that we have to take all that lost revenue from all the empty office space. And guess where we're putting it? We're putting it on the backs of all the people on the south side and west side for residential property taxes. It's like they need to figure this out quickly. Otherwise, nobody's going to own anything. And I'm not sure, Pete, you live in Lake Forest. It's a different mindset up there.
No,
but
well, the problem is, Steve, is governments aren't run like businesses, and they should be, because if you're a bad earner in real estate, what happens?
You go out of business. You go out of business. Yeah.
You go out of business. Okay. You're a bad government employee. What happens? Well, 30 years later, you get a pension.
You're right.
So
yeah.
So till we get to that point, and unfortunately, we're going to have to go bankrupt to clear the slate for anything to happen, because politics do come into play. I hope I'm wrong, but Illinois is going to have to go bankrupt. Chicago's going to have to be Detroit. I don't see how you're going to get any meaningful change, because when you grow up with no money in the city, okay, you're a Democrat because you just are. And what I remember about Richard J. Daley was, I was 10 years old. We were 10 years old, but there was a system in place, and that system carried over even after he passed in 76. Corrupt or not, whatever you want to say, at least you know what the rules were, okay? Then you had Byrne, Blandick, and all that crap, and then you had Richard M. coming in there, and he really marketed, and that's when you got in the real estate scene. I'm just curious your take on what Richard M. did to get things going, because he did a lot of good as far as having systems in place to promote business.
Yeah, I think you have to promote Chicago that way. And I think, you know, the only way you're going to save the city is if you take advantage of all the culture and the restaurants and the nightlife and the parks and the sports that we have. People that visit Chicago still, on an annual basis, they say Chicago is our favorite destination for people that travel across the United States and even globally. So I think Chicago is still a world-class city when it comes to the nightlife and the social scene. And I think the next mayor, and I hope there's a next mayor, that comes in and says, we need to build our business brand again, because all the people that have left, Tyson, Caterpillar, Boeing, all the financial, investors and people that you love and know. And if the Bears leave Chicago and Illinois and go to Hammond, Indiana, that is going to be a stank on everyone's resume that I don't think will ever go away. And you can try to spin it all you want about, oh, I was just trying to save the taxpayers money. Meanwhile, we have the biggest property tax hike in the history of Illinois. And this new budget that they passed yesterday is the biggest budget in the history of Illinois. So save it. You're not speaking truth. You're spinning it to make it look like you really care, while your own corporation gets a $130 million tax break. And yet you're going to sit here and say, oh, but I really care about the citizens of this state. Somebody wants to run for president. My opinion is if he loses the Bears, there's no way he'll ever be elected president.
Restaurants and bars, man, if you're operating on, just say food, you're operating on 10%, 5 to 10% net. And these people don't understand. You got startup costs, putting all this stuff together, and then you throw in the unknowns because you're trying to do a business plan to get somebody to give you a loan, and you're doing these projections. You can't make the math work. That's why you see all these art galleries and corporate storefronts, Steve. It's a music podcast, and you got me on a tangent. I don't care. Why are there so many open storefronts, commercial real estate out there, Steve, where you just see these art galleries? And are the owners of the property, do they make more money by claiming it on their taxes that it's vacant versus actual lowering the rent to put somebody in there?
That's a great question. Well, in other states too, Pete, there's
let's talk about other states, Steve, not the one that you work in.
Right. There's daycare centers that don't exist in certain states, right? There's certain hospice care centers that don't exist. And it's all the big tax scam. An income scam. But I think, when you look at downtown Chicago, and this is really sad. Go to Water Tower Place today. And it's an empty place. It may get busy on the weekends, but my dentist still works in the office complex at Water Tower Place. And just for nostalgia's sake, because that's where I grew up, where my family and I would go every weekend, I'll just walk around, and it's sad. Like, the food court's gone. So many stores are shut down, Water Tower Place. Michigan Avenue, like, so many places are leaving. And I think, until we get a mayor who is pro-business, who's all about development, and I think Richard M. Daley, and I think, honestly, Rahm Emanuel did a decent job of attracting big business and small business to thrive in Chicago. And unfortunately, they made their mistakes. They've paid for their mistakes, between parking meters and, police, being caught on camera. So, it's a shame, because I think that's the type of leader we need.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Alexi Janoulias is the one. I know he wants to run for mayor. But I think it's one of those things that you need somebody who understands business, like you said. You need somebody who understands what P&L means, and that's it. And there's got to be, and I say this respectfully, my best friend is a Chicago cop. Yeah. My wife used to work for 20 years for the Chicago Teachers Union, and God bless every firefighter, police officer, and teacher, for sure. But they have to restructure the pension. They just have to, because that's what's bleeding our state government and our city government. And until they figure out how to do that, we're going to continue being paying for everybody's pension.
We're not having babies like we used to, and you got people living longer who the numbers just don't add up. So call me political, whatever it is. It's just a numbers game, Steve. All right, Steve, let's sell some properties here. How does somebody, they need a good agent. Where do we send them there? Put the coffee down.
I love it. No, I think the main thing is, especially with AI, a lot of people think they can just do their home shopping on their own. I think no matter whether you work with me or another experienced realtor, I would say the most important thing is find somebody who's a local expert. So for example, my team is unique that we serve the city and the suburbs, but I have agents on my team that serve a specific neighborhood or a specific area because they know those areas. So whether you live in Lake Forest or Lincoln Park, or whether you want to find a summer home in Michigan or Indiana, or whether you're an investor and you want to do multi-unit buildings, which I'm a big fan of, I think the main thing is you want to work with somebody who's experienced. So the only thing that I bring to the table that's different is that I'm a former licensed real estate appraiser. So if somebody's buying a multi-unit building, I can tell them exactly what this place is worth based on the cash analysis or the income approach versus just sales comparison. Same thing, we're very blessed. We've worked with a lot of builders and developers. I can help people evaluate what's the difference of cost of new construction versus a resale. And then, of course, the cost to duplicate that home. There's an evaluation to that as well. Pete, I love what I do. I mean, I really do. And I think, the greatest thing is I was talking to an agent the other day, and he was working like up in Lake Barrington. And I called him, and he's been around. And I finally one time we were talking, and I said, "Well, how old are you?" He goes, "I'm 89." He's 89 years old, Pete, and he is not retired from real estate because all he does is sell condos and townhomes in those senior subdivisions. That's his jam. That's his niche. So for him, all he does is walk around his subdivision, 55 and older crowd, and he's living large. So I'm going, you know what? I talk to my wife all the time. We've got twin boys that are 16. God willing, they'll go to college and life will be grand.
Amen.
I don't think I'm ever going to be retiring, Pete, anytime soon. I'm just going to keep working, man. Right?
What advice do you got for somebody? It's like they're out there looking for a job. Should they study for the real estate license and try to get in, at least, do both? What do you think?
Yeah, I think you have to embrace whatever your calling is. I mean, for me, I realized that I could not be an architect, that I needed to be out and about, meeting people. I think anybody that's in sales and marketing, we're all cut from the same cloth. We're social creatures. I think a lot of athletes, whether you played high school athletics or even college athletics, I think that helps you in sales and in business because why? You're used to the grind, you're used to the discipline, you're used to the drive, and you want competition. I thrive on competition. If I am in a multiple bid situation and I know my client won the bidding war between 8 other buyers, I love that. So to me, I thrive on competition. And I think if you have that same mentality, you can do anything you put your mind to. But I will say this, Pete, the trades are the future.
Yeah.
And I mean that. AI cannot take away what a plumber, an electrician, a carpenter, a painter, or roofer can do. And even a mechanic. Like I'm just telling you, at Lane Tech, when we took wood shop, electric shop, all those other different shops, I'm going, why am I taking this? And now I go, man, I wish they still offer those classes. Because, auto shop, you name it, like everything, welding. I'm going, that's where the future is. And these kids, I know my plumber, when he fixes stuff around our house, and I ask him about his day, and he tells me how many jobs he's doing per day. I'm like going, this guy makes about $500,000 a year. But people want to look down on plumbers because they're plumbers. I'm like, he's his own boss.
College marketing administration screwed this whole thing up. The stigmatism and all that.
I think you're right. And to me, it's like, there's nothing wrong with being in the trades and owning your own business and being your own boss. Because to me, it's
working
like
with your hands.
Yeah, he controls his own hours. Again, it's not an easy job. It's not a sexy job. But to me, it's like if one of my kids said, "Dad, I don't think I want to go to college," I would be disappointed. But at the same time, I'd be like, "Well, what do you want to do?" And then we'd have to come up with some sort of business plan. So whether it's like I want to go into the military, great. Or if I want to go into the trades, okay, let's get you into that arena.
Community college. The first 2 years, best value around. Get your AA cut in half.
I agree. I totally agree. It's either that or college scholarship and NIL money, Pete. We got two extremes here.
So much for the music scene.
Right.
Steve, how does somebody get a hold of you? They say, "Hey, man, I need your help."
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, I've got two websites. They all go to the same place, SteveMcEwen.com, MCEWEN.com, also MakingChicagoMove.com. Or you can call me the old-fashioned way, 312-307-9470, 312-307-9470.
He says it twice. That's smart.
You have to.
Bongo?
That's how you know you knew you were in radio.
Yes. and if you're under 30 and you text me, I might text you the next day.
Bongo, Mike, take us down the home stretch because we have some very important things that I may not even know about Mr. McEwen. Please.
All right, here we go. We're back to the music part of it now. What I usually do is I usually ask our guests, what was the first concert you saw? Who was it? Where was it?
Wow, that is a great question. Pete, you're going to die when I tell you this.
Chicago Fest.
No.
Okay.
I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I got to remember this. I think it was Barry Manilow at Ravinia.
Wow.
And my mother took me there.
Okay.
And I had no choice. I think I was 8 or 9. But I did remember the number to DCFS, and I called DCFS the next day. Anyway. But yeah, I really...
Wait, hold on. No Battle of the Bands at Gordon Tech? That was...
No,
that doesn't count.
No, that doesn't count. I would
that doesn't count. Yeah.
Sorry.
First big concert. I mean,
back then, that was big.
You got to do the Copacabana, right?
Yeah, supposedly my aunt met Elvis, and I supposedly saw Elvis when I was a kid, but I never saw him in concert. I would say, honestly, Pete, it was probably Journey with 38 Special or Bryan Adams, and it was probably at the Rosemont Horizon.
So that was on your own, not with your mom.
Correct.
Right,
Correct.
Okay.
she was in the car after she dropped me off. No, I'm joking. But no, but I would say that, and then honestly, I think you go away to college, man, and that's when your life opens up. And so I even seen Ministry, at the age of 18 was pretty impressive.
Yeah.
That was fun. But yeah, I would say as an adult,
Barry was your first though. Barry Manilow is really the number one. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with it. What are you going to do?
Mandy.
Your parents took you.
Yes.
You went to Ravinia. You probably had a nice night out, and you were probably home by 10 o'clock.
Charcuterie board.
I think my mom.
Polish sausage.
I think my mom gave me some Little Debbie's.
The next question is,
how long does this podcast go? This is amazing.
We're at time, so I'm going to let Bongo Mike get one more.
One more question for you, Steve. We always ask this because we always want to know: Pop-Tarts, do you love them? Do you hate them? What's your opinion?
Well, first of all, they got to be toasted. There are some people that eat them raw. They got to be toasted. And there's something about the raspberry Pop-Tart. I don't know what it is about the raspberry, but that's my favorite. I agree.
Okay. Yeah,
for
toasted.
Sure.
I'm with you, and I really prefer it toasted myself. How about butter? You ever put butter on one of those things?
You can. Yeah.
We've had a few people say that they do it that way, and it's always interesting because I never thought about doing it, but butter's got to go good on there, right?
Well, it's got to be real butter too. And you got to put it on the flip side, not the frosted side, but the side that's kind of dull and has no flavor.
Yeah. Right, exactly.
That's where you're serving butter. Yes,
right.
Absolutely.
Margarine. Steve McEwen, man, thanks for coming on the Chicago Local Music Scene Podcast, Hogpod.
Pleasure to meet you. Thanks
for having me. We'll see you later.
Steve, go sell a house. You got
right now.
You got an open house. I know he does.
Yes, this weekend. We'll see you guys.